Okay, so about a month ago, I did a 2-part memory about 1991 and what led me to drink. And I don't have my regular tripod with me. I forgot to stick it back in my car because I was using it at home last week, and I colored my hair because I said it was getting ruddy looking. And I have the reunion in 5 weeks. Actually, we're 5 weeks out now. It's getting close. Closer. So, any rate, so I left off where I had just gotten out of the bathroom, and my mother comes and gets me and takes me out to the RV. And I didn't even greet my aunts, my uncles. We just went from the Aunt Noreen's house to the RV. Trying to... I think it needs to come up like that. I had to adjust my phone. My camera, my phone. And I ordered a new phone, so it should be here before the reunion. Actually, it should be here this coming week or next week. I don't know. Amazon's kind of quirky. So anyway, so we go out to the RV, and she sits me down on her side of the RV couch. And I get a lecture from him. But, no. I do get a lecture. Sorry. Back up. I was sitting on my side of the couch, and she was sitting on her side of the couch. And, she had said to me, after smacking her lips several times, and she said, it's been brought to my attention that you were out drinking in a bar and you got drunk. And is that true? And I thought a moment, and I thought, God, I need to tell her. And I felt really bad because I knew that she was upset. I knew that what I was going to tell her was going to make her mad, and I had suspected that she knew anyway. And of course, I wasn't going to lie to her. I already did that over the phone. And I already knew I was in trouble. And I swallowed hard, and I got up from my side of the couch. She had dual couches, so I was on this side, she was on this one. And I walked a couple paces to her, and I sat down next to her, and I grabbed a hold of her hands, and my hands in her hands went in her lap, as they normally did when I was getting scolded. And I told her that out of all these years of anything I said that you've ever heard about me that I did, I wish to God, and I didn't do any of those other things that I was ever accused of, ever. I told her I wish to God that this time I could tell you that this is not true. I said, but it is. And she looked at me, and she pulled back, sat up straight. Not that she was slouching, because she didn't slouch, but she just kind of like pulled back and had a different posture. And she said, what are you telling me? And she wanted to hear it from my lips. As she always did, she wanted to hear it with her ears out of my mouth, what I did or what I didn't do. And I explained to her that Daryl and I went to the bar, or I went to the bar with Daryl, and I had started drinking rum and coke, and those rum and cokes turned into other alcohol that I wasn't actually aware of what I was drinking. I just started drinking. And she reminded me this time, the first time in my life, How old was I? You're 26 years old. You're going to try to tell me that you don't know the difference between right and wrong. What have I been teaching you all these years? And I told her, I said, I know the difference between right and wrong. And she said, that I already had it in my mind to get drunk. And I told her no, because I'd never gotten drunk before. This is the first time that I ever gotten drunk, ever. And she asked me why. And I told her, well, because Dad died. And she said, you're going to use Dad dying as an excuse and to give yourself permission to go into a bar and with a man. I said, but Daryl's my cousin. Well, she had already told me back in May, when I was accused of being a slut, which I was not, and all that kind of stuff, when I was disowned the day we buried Dad, Ollie. And I was not to go anywhere like that with anybody, no matter who it was, unless it was my husband. I tried telling her I didn't think it was anything wrong with it because I was with Daryl. I said, Daryl's my cousin. She didn't care. As far as she was concerned, I had no right going to begin with. And also, I was at Daryl's house to work, not to be going inside bars. And then she said, that's the reason why you got drunk. I'm like, no, ma'am, that's one of the reasons why I guess I got drunk. And I just didn't realize what I was drinking. And, what possessed you to drink? And then I told her that it still bothered me. I said, on the argument that you and I got into, I said, and that you disowned me and that I cursed you out. And I feel really bad about it. And for the record, I have always felt bad about that. I called her, I mentioned it in the other videos. I'm not going to repeat it. I called her a bunch of bad names. And it was a whipping that was promised to me that I never got. And later on, during the course of the next couple of years, whenever I'd ride her, I'd tell her how sorry I was. When are you going to come and give me my whippings to make me feel better about this whole entire thing? And that never happened. But she had told me, please stop telling me that you're sorry in cards, and every single card and letter that I'd write to her. She was, I know that you're sorry. And I'm like, well, you never told me that you forgave me. You always kept reminding me about this whipping that I'm supposed to get. And I said, I haven't gotten it yet. So, because she wasn't allowed to see me ever again, she did put me on restriction for that. And some other stuff. But, until she was able to see me and she wasn't, that was my punishment, for now. But, she had said all of that was cleared up. She goes, why are you still upset about it? I go, because, I said, it just, everything that happened. I mean, it still bothered me. I mean, it was weeks ago. I understood that. But it was still heartfelt to me. I mean, I got a whipping this particular day, and I wish that she would have just given me that whipping for the cursing that I did do, but she didn't. I don't know why she was waiting for that. She had every opportunity during this time period to give me the whipping that was owed, and it just never happened. And I've also indicated that she was a woman of her word. If she said she would do something, she did it. And she told me that I would never get away with anything with her, and I never did. But going back to the drinking thing, I explained to her, like I said, why I got drunk, my reasoning and stuff like that, and she didn't think it was a good idea. It was valid. Dad passed away, people die. Try to get through this. She understood that I was grieving for him, but on the same token, it still didn't give me the right or permission to go into a bar, no matter who it was with, and get drink and get drunk. And the situation between her and me. I mean, she was sorry that it happened. It took place. She was sorry that she believed the other family of these lies and stuff like that, and that whole entire and how bad it hurt me, and how bad she hurt me, to cause me to get so angry and hurt and to curse at her, and told me that I need to get through it and to get over it. That was part of growing up. I don't know how that was supposed to be part of growing up, but she told me it was. So then she's lecturing me on that, and she said, "You lied to me. I want you to tell me again what you told me." And she wanted me to look her in the eyes, tell her face to face, "You tell me what you said to me over the phone." And about sick and stuff like that. And I told her, I said, I was sick. I said, I just kept throwing up food, and anything I drank, I threw it up, and I just kept throwing up all this liquid. I said, I told her it was horrible what I went through. The headache, the stomach ache, the dizziness, my head just pounded for a couple of days. I said, it was like the worst experience ever. And I told her, I said, I learned my lesson. I said, I promise I'll never do it again. And she said, I'm glad you learned your lesson, and I'm glad you're promising never to do it again. But that didn't get me off the hook. Not by far, because I lied. And she was not going to have me lie to her. And she had said, what possessed you to lie to me? I want to know. You know, have you ever lied to me before? And I had never lied to her before. And she said, how do I know that? How do I know that's not a lie? How do I know that I can even trust you anymore? And she could always trust me. And she was deeply hurt and pissed that I lied to her, because I had never lied to her. And I told her I'd never do it again. And I said, that was the only time I ever lied. I said, and I had every intention, I said, of coming clean. I said, and telling you face to face, myself, on my own, on what I did. I said, instead of you hearing it from somebody else. But apparently, I said, you heard it from somebody else. And that's when she, during this conversation, is when she told me how I worried her all night long, and that she did not like, because I've done that before. And it was never meant for me to ever worry her, but it did. And she said she was up all night. She did not sleep at all. And she said, I just had, she had that gut feeling that something was wrong. And she said about how she called all night long. And I said, but why did you keep calling? And she said, because. She goes, you called me. She goes, and I knew something was up. Can't pull anything over her, because she always called me. And there was one time before that I did call her, and at Uncle Wayne's, and she ended up calling back that night to check on me, and but she said I kept calling and calling and calling, until she finally gave up calling and waited for the next, the morning to come, and tried to lay down and go to sleep for a couple of hours in a parking lot at work. And anyway, and so when she woke up after a couple of hours, she started calling the house again. And she said, I called several times. She goes, and no one answered that phone. And I'm like, going, I was in the back bedroom trying to sleep. I said, Daryl was asleep in the bed, in his bedroom. And I wasn't going to get up and answer the phone. I said I couldn't even stand the phone ringing. I had knew that she had called probably 4 or 5 different times. There was maybe more times than that. She kept calling the house something like every 20-30 minutes. And she said when the phone wasn't getting answered, she got more worried, thinking that I was dead or something. And that, or I was in the hospital and something bad happened. And she was worried and mad. And then when she did get a hold of me and talked to me on the phone, she said, you had an opportunity, she goes, to tell me. And she goes, and you didn't. She goes, you talked around it, which I did. I told her, I said, I was just so sick. I said, I knew that it would hurt you. And I said, I knew that you would be worried. And I didn't want to do that because Grandma was sick and Grandma was dying. I don't think I knew at the time that Grandma was dying, actually. I just knew that she was in a care facility for Alzheimer's there in Arizona where Uncle Wayne lived. I don't think I realized actually that Grandma was going to die. Maybe they didn't either, I don't know, but I didn't. And I told her, I said, I didn't want to tell you over the phone because I didn't want you to get upset and worried. And she said, how do you think it made me feel? She goes, of course, she goes, I was worried. Of course I was upset. She goes, of course and you made me believe that something was wrong with you, that something happened to you. And she said that if I would have just told her over the phone that I went out to the bar and got drunk, she goes, yeah, she goes, I would have been mad at you. She goes, but I would have dealt with you once I came back to California. She goes, but you didn't tell me the truth. You talked around it. I gave you an opportunity to tell me what happened. I even asked you questions. Why are you sick? What made you sick? She goes, that would have been a good response for you to tell me that you went to the bar and got drunk with her. And I asked her, I said, would you have punished me? Well, yeah, she would have punished me. But now it was worse because I lied to her and she was not going to have me lie to her and get away with it. And she didn't. So after her lecture, she got up from the couch. She went into her bedroom, got a belt, and came back into the living room of the RV, told me to take off my shoes, undo my pants, and put me across her lap and whipped me really good. And that's why I got a whipping, because of me lying to her. I didn't know, I don't think I really actually did know at the time that how things were in Missouri. I doubt it. I found out a few years ago on stuff on how Rita was, and I think now, well, I would go as far as saying I think I know now on many different things on why and how come she was with me the way she was. I can understand many things now. I always knew how she was going to be with me, but I don't think that had anything to do with how, she raised her first two. I really don't. All she said to me was that it was going to be different. She was going to raise me differently, or re-raise me different than she did her first two. And she said that she would not fail me because she felt that she failed as a mother, and she would not fail me. And she wanted me to turn out right. And me, she said she would get right this time, because she never thought that she ever got her first two right. And that I did share with Karen I told her I don't really understand what Mom meant by that, but I kind of do now. I'll go into elaborate details of that stuff on the re-raising and the stuff that was said to me in my book. But yeah, I got a whipping, age 26. Too old to get discipline? Maybe. To a lot of people's standards, yes. But understand this. To me, it was normal. To me, it's what I expected and knew would happen, not just with this incident, but pretty much with every single one. There were some that when I was disciplined was a surprise to me. But I knew how she was. I knew how she was with me. Very, very extremely strict. Zero tolerance for my mouth and behavior. She did not tolerate it, and she wasn't going to. She wanted me to turn out in life respectful and stuff like that. So, I was going to say something else, but so I'll just say it and then I'll finish my story. Tony and I were up in Oregon this one particular year. It was in 2005, maybe 2006. I think it was 2006 actually. One of our last times that we went up to Oregon. And her and I were talking on the phone, and I was upset, and I knew that I would never see her again at this point. Too many years had just gone by, and I pretty much just succumbed to the fact that it's not going to happen. And something that she had said to me, and I told her, I said, I am right. I said, I've always been right. I'm never going to see you again, am I? And she goes, I don't know. Because I reminded her of the whippings that she owed me. There was a handful. The one from 1991 was one of them. And I told her, I said, I wanted you to see the woman that I turned out to be. I wanted you to see how I became. I said, and all of it was because of you. I said, and what you did to me, what you did for me, not did to me necessarily, what you did for me. And I said, you helped me. And I said, it took a lot of love from you, a lot of patience. I said, I remember all the discipline you gave me, all the punishments you gave me. I said, I might not remember every single one, and for whatever reason, I said, but I remember them. I said, punish me, I said a lot. And I told her, I thanked her for it. And I told her I was grateful. And I was in my early 40s when I told her that. And I told her, I said, I'm sure that during the course of those years, I said that we haven't been able to see each other. If we were, I said, and if I needed to be put across your lap, I said, been spanked or had a whipping or slapped across my mouth or whatever, I know that you would have done it. Didn't matter how old I was. And it never mattered how old I was. Not in her eyes, not in the family's eyes, as far as my aunts and uncles. There's a few of them, and I'll go into that one in my book, that did discipline me. There was never a whole lot that they ever did. She predominantly reprimanded me, as she would put it. She would use the word punish to me, or discipline. You're going to get a whipping, or she wouldn't say whipping, I say whipping, whooping. You're going to get a whooping, you have a whooping owed to you. You're going to get spanked, whatever forms of those words are, as she would use. But I thanked her for it. And I told her, outside of that one, I always said I never deserved. I said, I deserved it all. I said, every single one. I said, I deserved. Thank you. I said, for honoring, I said, and thank you for honoring my request. And, to change me. And becoming my mother. And I said a bunch of other stuff. And she said, thank you, darling. She said, I'm glad to know that I did at least one thing right in my life. And I said, you're welcome. And she said, I told her, I said, you always did. By me. You always did everything right by me. And I couldn't understand why. I never understood why. It doesn't matter when it was. I still don't understand the why. I know the reason why she could never see me again. That I do know. I know the details behind it. But it's something I don't understand, for the fact is she was a very strong woman. Strong-willed, determined, and she didn't put up with stuff from anybody. And so why she did from my uncle, I kind of understand it now. But then I did not. And I don't know. I think that's why she taught me not to cow down to people. Do not allow a man to have that much control over you. You know, don't have a man put their hands on you ever. Don't let, meaning hit you. Don't ever let that happen. And don't let a man talk to you badly. She would tell me that frequently when I was a young girl. And she told me that when I lived in Iowa, when she heard that jackass on the phone talk to me the way he did, and that really upset her. And then she reminded me on the same thing again. Don't let anybody talk to you that way. Don't put up with it. Tony never talked to me derogatory. Tony never cursed me. Tony never laid a violent hand on me ever. He never really forbid me to do anything. He wasn't about control. Did he advise me on stuff not to do? Oh yeah. You know, or tell me that I don't think this is a good idea, or I don't think this is a good choice. You know, stuff like that. But did he ever forbid me? Never. I can't think of one time that Tony ever forbid me not to do anything. It didn't happen. So it's something that I am not used to. The only person in my lifetime that ever controlled me or forbid me to do anything was my mother, Aunt Marie. And her I listened to. I didn't, if somebody else said no or don't or whatever, yeah, whatever. Unless it was one of my uncles and aunts, and I better have listened to them, because if I didn't, I'd be getting in trouble when my mother saw me. But, so anyway, after my whipping, she lectures me some more, and, anyway, we come out of the RV. I still didn't greet my uncles yet, and my Uncle Wayne is being Uncle Wayne, and he was a jokester and stuff like that. And so we're going, she has me by the hand, and we're going towards Aunt Noreen's house. I mean, we're already in the driveway, so we're going to the front door. And Uncle Wayne goes, Teresa, we understand that you tied one on the other night. And I turned around and I said, who told you that? I don't remember what he said, but he said, Marie, do you know what Teresa did? And she was mad. I mean, she just like turned around, and it's the only time I ever heard her have a crossword with one of my uncles, her brothers. And she said something like, you never mind what she did. I already took care of it. She's already been reprimanded. She goes, you worry about taking care of your own. I already took care of mine. I take care of my own. You need to worry about taking care of yours, meaning Daryl. Because Daryl got a little fresh with me when I was drunk at the house. And I told her about that. And she brings me into the house. And my aunts, like I said, everybody knew that I got drunk. And Aunt Rose goes, honey, did we hear correctly what you did? And I'm like, I wasn't going to say anything. And I'm like going, what did you hear that I did? I'll tell you if it's true or not. And I think Aunt Sharon said, we heard that you were like 2 sheets into the wind or whatever that is. There's a saying about getting drunk, but they didn't say the word drunk. 10 sheets into the wind or 2 sheets into the wind, something like that. I said, where did you hear that from? And they had asked me, my aunts had asked me, is it true? And my mother's just standing there looking at me. And I look at her and she goes, answer your aunts. I'm like, yes, ma'am. I said, it's true. I said, I got drunk. And I went and sat down where I normally sat. So my mother joined us. And Aunt Noreen's like going like this, rubbing her arm. She never got mad at me. I don't think there was one time ever in all those years Aunt Noreen, and she was my great aunt, ever got mad at me. I know there was some times that she was a bit disappointed, but I never saw her get mad at me. And she wasn't mad, and she's rubbing her arms, and she's like, honey, we've all, not we all, but a lot of us here, she goes, have experienced that, and I hope it doesn't happen again and you learned your lesson. Yes, ma'am, I said, I learned my lesson. I said, it's never going to happen again. I'm rubbing my butt because, it still hurt. And my mother, before she came and sat down, she got a pillow and brought me the pillow to sit down on. And they're like, and I'm looking at Aunt Sharon, and there really wasn't much said that I actually remember. But, I mean, there was dialogue about me going out, getting drunk. What did I do? What did I drink? Stuff like that. And the experience and stuff like that. And then one of them said about like, oh, well, the first time that, when your uncle came home drunk and they were stumbling and stuff like that and draped over the fence. They were both draped over the fence and stuff like that. And left there. I don't remember if it was at Grandma's house that they were draped over the fence. It was I think Uncle Wayne and Uncle Tom. They had a little bit too much to drink. Obviously, this is when they were younger. And Grandma just left them there. Then I heard some other stories that I don't remember. But that one just popped in. And so, yeah, it was quite the experience. And I never drank like that again. I never got drunk again. And I was going to say something else, but I don't remember actually. My phone is tripping over to almost 35 minutes on this video. But, yeah, I never want to experience that again, and I'm not gonna. It was horrible. And I never saw any of my aunts and uncles get drunk. I did see them drink a couple of times. But to get drunk, I never saw that. And I never really heard them curse. there was a couple times that there was a word here and there that slipped out of their mouth. I think it's because they didn't want me to be around that type of influence. They didn't want to allow me to think that it was okay to curse and to act like that, or to drink and get drunk. I'll share my drinking stories later, because there is a couple. That I think they're funny now, but not at the time. Yeah. Anyway, that's it for now for this one, and peace out.